What's up, Crypto Crush community? Today we're going to understand the difference between a trend and a pattern. Okay, so before we start diving into the charts and drawing the different type of patterns or different type of trends, we are going to understand the very basics of it. So, number one, what is a trend? A trend is overall the direction of the market. Put it this way, you can zoom out and look at the bigger time frames and then zoom in and look in the closer time frames, and that will be your pattern. But when we're looking at the trend, that is when we zoom out and look at the overall direction of the market. So nowadays, if we're looking at gold, and that is what I'm going to talk about in this specific tutorial, gold, if we're looking at the monthly candles, it's clear to see and understand that we are in a uptrend. There's an uptrend, a downtrend, and a range. So when we're looking at gold nowadays, we are clearly in an uptrend. And one reason we can have that understanding is because if we're looking at gold, for years it was traded on the 2000s, okay, since roughly 83. From $400, that was the price of gold back in 88, okay? It went up and down, went all the way down to 300, and it crossed the 1,000. If we're looking since the year of 87, it crossed the 1,000 only about 30 years later. About 20 years later, that's when gold surpassed the 1,000 level. Since then, it has ongoingly gone up. Sometimes it went down, but because gold is a safe haven asset, it's easy for us to know that in the long run, gold usually is in an uptrend because people are constantly looking for safe haven. Sometimes it will be less, sometimes the urgency will be higher, and we'll see an uptrend that is much more aggressive, like this one right here. Because if we're looking back at what we just said, it took it about 20 years, more than 20 years, to go from 460 to over 1,000. It took us only 2 years to go from 1,800 at the year of 23, and now we're at 5,326. It took us less than 3 years to do what we didn't do over 20 years. Okay, so we're clearly in an uptrend if we're zooming out. Now, there's also a range. For years, if we're looking from the year of 13 all the way to 2020, we were in a range. Let me draw this range for you. Here we go. This was the range. Roughly around here. And let's move this line. This is roughly where the range was. For years, the range was somewhere between 1,120 and all the way up to 1,383. This has been going on since the year of 2013 and all the way up to the year of 2019. Since then, we are in an uptrend. Now let's have a closer look. Let's dive into the closer time frames and talk about a pattern, a structure, what price is doing right now inside the trend. So yes, we know that gold is going up. We know that there's a lot of geopolitical tension, a lot of wars around the world, many reasons for gold to ongoingly continue finding new all-time highs and searching for higher and higher points. But in this uptrend, there are many patterns. And if you understand how to read the pattern, you can position yourself into the next trade and find yourself making more money over time. Again, this is no guarantee. This is not a financial advice. This is strictly educational material. So let's dive into the charts and start looking for all kinds of patterns all over the gold chart. So for that, we're going to have to dive into deeper time frames. Yes, we can look for patterns also in higher time frames, but it's more relevant to look in closer time frames, such as 4 hours. Dailies you can also use for that. But I use the dailies to understand the overall trend, which is, as we said, an uptrend. And then I dive into deeper time frames, the smaller time frames, to understand the different patterns. So let's look at gold, what happened within 15 minutes time frames. We had a massive spike, then we had some kind of consolidation, some kind of a correction, letting gold drop back down to 4,400. Then we went back up, a little bit down. And in my opinion, because we're seeing the trend, the uptrend, the bullish trend, I think from here we're going to continue spiking up and finding new all-time highs. There are many patterns that show us this indication. So let's zoom in. First of all, if we're going back to our slide, there are flags, there are triangles, and there are head and shoulders. There are many patterns out there, but we're going to focus right now on flags, triangles, and head and shoulders, which are the main type of patterns out there. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, keep it simple. Once you start advancing, look into more patterns. But in the beginning, keep the basics in the top of your mind so that you can take these basics and use them practically into your day-to-day trading or chart reading or chart setup, whatever you're doing out there. So let's look at this. Flags. Flags, once I see multiple flags, this can give me a great indicator that we're looking at a good buying pressure. Remember, what we're looking at an uptrend can also happen in a downtrend. The same flags can happen also in a bearish market, in a downtrend. Okay? So, because we know that we are in an uptrend when it comes to gold, we are going to look at uptrend type of flags. So here we go. Let's take this time frame. This is the last week price of gold. Let's draw the flags. We got flag number 1 here. And again, ladies and gentlemen, it will never be 100% exactly and beautiful as in this photo. It will always have a little bit of up, a little bit of down, but the overall direction, the overall picture, that is what matters. And once you understand how to read this pattern and how to see these patterns, you're going to find yourself having an unlimited knowledge of executing trades by yourself over and over again. And you can ride the same exact pattern multiple times. If you're a swing trader, you can ride a pattern multiple times throughout the days. If you're a scalper, you can ride the same trend multiple times in 5 minutes. So this is where you're going to have to find out for yourself over time what type of trader you are. But if you have the basics of reading and understanding these patterns, you are already positioning yourself one step ahead of understanding what will be the price of gold next. And according to that, you'll be able to execute trades. So let's get back to it. We've got a flag here, sort of a flag. Then we got another flag. If we zoom in deeper, right? Let's zoom in a little bit deeper to see the flags. Make it. Flag number 2. So we've got flag number 1, buying pressure here. Flag number 2, buying pressure here. We have another small flag over here. So if I'm looking back, and if you check us out and see in our groups, we called it, we said gold is going to go up. But let's focus on the technical analysis here. So if we have one flag here, second flag here, what can we expect, ladies and gentlemen? An uptrend, a buy zone. So let's look back in it. We had one flag, two flag, and this is a buy zone right now. What I can expect already in advance is to create myself, if I'm a person who likes to execute sells, then I will already position my sell zone. And I myself will usually position it over here, and anywhere around this box, I will call it a selling zone. I can take a sell. And as you see, it did drop a little bit before spiking back up. Now I will say this, one phrase that I love to go by is your trend is your friend. Okay, so if I know that we are currently in an uptrend, I myself do not like to execute sells unless I am 100% certain that this is a good sell zone. Otherwise, I'm going to stick to my buys because I know that we're in an uptrend, so I might have a small drawdown, but overall we're going to find that new all-time high and I will exit this trade in profit. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, when trading, always your trend is your friend. Do not go against your trend. It does not end well unless you're extremely experienced and extremely sure that your sell zone is a right sell zone. If we're talking about an uptrend, and if we're talking about a downtrend, we 100% know for a fact that that buy zone will actually hit and will execute properly. So let's conclude this tutorial. When we're looking at trends and patterns, a trend is a direction versus a setup. A trend is the bigger picture versus the short-term shape. And the trend is where we are going, not when do I enter. When do I enter suits more a pattern, because when I understand that this charts and this systems and whatever asset I'm looking at, history repeats itself. Once I understand the patterns and the rhythm, as I've said, I've got the first step of understanding the asset that I'm trading in unlocked. And from here on, it's continuing to evolve and understand better and learn more and educate yourself more. And most importantly, gain more experience by touching and executing trades or doing it with your own hands, because that is what we believe in Crypto Crush. You have to do to learn. So that is all. See you on our next tutorial.